Cristiano Ronaldo, the global football icon known for his incredible skill, relentless work ethic, and unmatched charisma, has always been a magnet for headlines. Whether he's dazzling fans with his phenomenal goals or making waves with his candid opinions, Ronaldo is never far from the spotlight. But one particular moment that sent shockwaves through the sports world came during a live television interview, when the Portuguese superstar hilariously dismantled an interviewer's provocative questions, leaving her, and everyone watching, completely speechless. Before we start, smash the like and subscribe buttons for more updates. The exchange took place after an intense Champions League match, where Ronaldo had once again proven why he remains one of the greatest players of all time. Fresh from a stunning performance in which he netted a brace and provided a crucial assist, he was pulled aside for a post-match interview. The stadium buzzed with energy as fans chanted his name and reporters scrambled to capture his thoughts. As he approached the interviewer, microphone in hand, no one expected what was about to unfold. The interviewer, a well-known media personality notorious for her controversial questioning, started off with the usual formalities, congratulating Ronaldo on his performance. But almost immediately, she steered the conversation in an unexpected direction. "Cristiano," she began with a smirk, "tonight you scored twice, but some people say you were lucky. Do you think your success is more about luck than skill these days?" A glimmer of amusement flashed in Ronaldo's eyes. He arched an eyebrow, his expression shifting into one of playful disbelief. For a moment it seemed as if he was deciding whether to take the question seriously or completely dismantle it with wit. The latter choice won. "Luck?" Ronaldo echoed, tilting his head slightly. "If it's luck, then I must be the luckiest person alive for the past 20 years. The crowd of journalists chuckled, but the interviewer was undeterred. She pressed on, sensing an opportunity to provoke a reaction. "But surely, Cristiano, at this stage in your career, your physicality is declining? Some critics say you rely too much on penalties to maintain your goal record." At this, Ronaldo's famous smirk grew wider. He folded his arms across his chest and leaned slightly toward the microphone. "Ah, penalties. Let me ask you something," he said, now turning the tables. "If scoring penalties is so easy, why do so many players miss them? Why do some of the best in the world choke under pressure?" the interviewer stammered, caught off guard. "You see," Ronaldo continued, his voice carrying the sharpness of a seasoned debater, "people love to talk about penalties as if they don't count. But tell me, when I scored a last-minute penalty in the Champions League final, did it not matter? Did it not help my team win?" The murmurs among the surrounding press indicated that Ronaldo had just scored a rhetorical hat trick. The interviewer, visibly flustered, attempted to recover, but Ronaldo was far from finished. "You mentioned my physicality," he said, shifting his stance. "You know what's funny? Every season they say I am getting slower, weaker finished, and yet I am still here, still scoring, still winning. Maybe time is going backward for me." The stadium staff, players, and even fellow journalists burst into laughter. The interviewer tried to regain control, but Ronaldo wasn't letting her off the hook. "You have interviewed many players," he continued, his tone playful but unrelenting. "When Messi scores, do you ask him if he is lucky? When others score penalties, do you question their ability?" The interviewer, now clearly at a loss for words, shook her head hesitantly. "So why me?" Ronaldo asked with a grin. "Why is it always me who has to prove himself again and again? Maybe, just maybe, it's because I make it look too easy." At this, the audience erupted in applause. Even the other journalists, some of whom had likely prepared their own tough questions, couldn't help but acknowledge the masterclass Ronaldo had just delivered. Not in football, but in handling the media. The interviewer, realizing she had been completely outmaneuvered, managed a weak laugh. "Well, Cristiano, you always know how to keep things interesting." Ronaldo winked. "That's what I do." And with that, he turned and walked off, his aura unshaken, his legacy further cemented, not just as a footballing icon, but as a man who could dismantle critics with the same precision he used to put the ball in the back of the net. The clip of the interview went viral within minutes, spreading like wildfire across social media. Fans hailed Ronaldo for his sharp wit and confidence, while even some of his fiercest critics admitted they had been thoroughly entertained. Memes flooded the internet with captions like "CR7 schooling the media" and "When will they learn?" Sports analysts dissected the moment, with some praising Ronaldo's ability to handle pressure both on and off the field. Others debated whether the interviewer had been unfair in her line of questioning, but one thing was undeniable. Ronaldo had stolen the show once again, proving that whether on the pitch or in front of a microphone, he remained untouchable. The incident only added to Ronaldo's legend. He had always been more than just a footballer. He was an entertainer, a competitor, and a symbol of resilience. The world had seen him defy expectations time and time again, but this was yet another reminder that his greatness wasn't confined to football alone. And as the dust settled, one lingering question remained. Would anyone ever learn not to challenge Cristiano Ronaldo in an interview? Because if history had taught anything, it was that the answer was a resounding no. As the interview clip spread like wildfire across social media, fans and analysts alike couldn't stop talking about the moment Cristiano Ronaldo had effortlessly dismantled the interviewer. The sheer brilliance with which he handled the situation left no room for doubt. He wasn't just one of the greatest footballers of all time, but also a master of handling the press. His responses were not just about deflecting criticism, they were a reflection of his mentality, his relentless drive to prove himself, his refusal to be diminished, and his unwavering confidence that had fueled his career for decades. As Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube exploded with reactions, famous football pundits weighed in on the exchange. Gary Neville, who had played alongside Ronaldo at Manchester United, was among the first to comment, saying on live television, "That's Cristiano for you. People keep trying to write him off, and he keeps proving them wrong. The way he handled that interviewer, absolutely brilliant." Meanwhile, other former players, including Rio Ferdinand and Roy Keane, were quick to praise Ronaldo for his wit and intelligence in handling the media. Ferdinand, who had been a teammate of Ronaldo during his early years at Manchester United, laughed while reviewing the clip. "He's always had that confidence, that belief in himself. People mistake it for arrogance, but what they don't understand is that this is what makes him great." Keane, never one to mince words, was even more direct. "The question was stupid to begin with," he said during a sports panel discussion. "People say he's lucky. They say he relies on penalties. Give me a break. The man's been at the top of his game for 2 decades, breaking records left and right. If that's luck, I'd love to be that lucky." But beyond the analysis and expert opinions, it was the reaction from fans that truly showed the impact of Ronaldo's response. In Madrid, Manchester, Turin, and his homeland of Portugal, supporters flooded social media with praise. Hashtags like #RonaldoClapback, #GOATinterview, and #CR7ownsmedia trended worldwide. Even celebrities got in on the action. NBA legend LeBron James, himself no stranger to criticism, tweeted, "Ronaldo just gave a masterclass in handling the media. Goats move different." Meanwhile, UFC fighter Conor McGregor, known for his trash talk and bravado, posted a clip of the interview with the caption, "That's how you shut them up. Respect, champ." What made the moment even more significant was that it wasn't just a one-time response to a single journalist. It highlighted a broader issue in sports media, the tendency to undermine and nitpick at greatness. Ronaldo's career had been scrutinized in ways few others had experienced. Despite being the highest-scoring footballer in history, despite winning league titles in England, Spain, and Italy, despite lifting 5 Ballon d'Or trophies, the narrative around him always seemed to circle back to attempts to diminish his achievements. And yet, time and again, he had proven that he was more than just statistics. He was a force of nature. The impact of that interview was felt in the days and weeks that followed. The journalist herself, though momentarily stunned on air, later admitted that she had underestimated Ronaldo's sharpness. "I thought I was going to put him on the spot, but he turned the tables on me," she said, in an interview with a media outlet. "He's incredibly articulate and quick-witted. It was a moment I'll never forget." Meanwhile, Ronaldo continued to do what he did best, silence critics with his performances. In the next match, he scored another brace, including a breathtaking long-range effort that left commentators speechless. After the game, rather than giving an interview, he simply walked past the media zone, flashed a knowing smile, and pointed to his boots, letting his performance do the talking. This wasn't the first time Ronaldo had proven doubters wrong, and it certainly wouldn't be the last. The cycle was predictable. Every few years, critics would question whether he was finished, whether his time at the top had come to an end. And each time, Ronaldo would respond not with words alone, but with goals, trophies, and moments of brilliance that cemented his legacy. His ability to rise above criticism wasn't just about talent, it was about mentality. From his early days in Sporting CP to his meteoric rise at Manchester United, from his legendary stint at Real Madrid to his success in Italy with Juventus, and even into the latter stages of his career, Ronaldo had never lost that hunger. It was this same hunger that had made him wake up at dawn for extra training sessions while others slept. It was the same hunger that had driven him to perfect his free kicks, his headers, his dribbling, his finishing. And it was the same hunger that allowed him to remain at the top of world football when so many of his peers had faded into obscurity. Beyond his sporting achievements, this moment was a testament to something even greater: the power of self-belief. Ronaldo had often spoken about the importance of mental strength. He had grown up in a small home in Madeira, faced obstacles that would have crushed lesser individuals, and yet, through sheer determination, had turned himself into a global icon. It was a lesson for athletes, for professionals, for anyone facing doubt or criticism. The world would always have people ready to undermine success, to question greatness, to find faults in what they could not replicate. But what mattered was how one responded. And Ronaldo's response was clear, with confidence, with humor, and with undeniable greatness. As weeks passed, the internet continued to churn out memes, GIFs, and videos of the interview. The moment had transcended football, becoming a case study in media management, in handling pressure, in owning the narrative. Sports journalism programs even used the clip as an example of how top athletes navigate interviews. One professor at a prestigious journalism school remarked, "This is why interviewing elite athletes is an art. If you come unprepared, if you ask lazy questions, they will expose you." Ronaldo did just that. The journalist who had faced Ronaldo that night later reflected on the moment. "At the time, I felt like I had been caught off guard, but looking back, I respect how he handled it. He could have been defensive. He could have shut me down. But instead, he used humor and logic to flip the situation. It was honestly a privilege to witness it firsthand." Meanwhile, Ronaldo continued his journey. While social media still buzzed about the interview, he was already focused on the next match, the next challenge, the next opportunity to write history. His career had been built on moments like these, not just goals and trophies, but battles won off the pitch, against doubt, against criticism, against those who dared to question his greatness. And for those still wondering whether Ronaldo would ever slow down, his actions spoke louder than any words. He was still scoring, still winning, still defying time itself. He was, as he had always been, Cristiano Ronaldo, the man who never stopped proving them wrong. As the weeks passed following Ronaldo's now iconic interview, its impact continued to ripple across the sports world. What had started as a routine post-match exchange had evolved into a defining moment of his career, not because of what he had done on the pitch that night, but because of how he had commanded the conversation, seized control of his own narrative, and reminded the world why he was still one of the greatest athletes of all time. Media outlets continued to dissect the moment, and some journalists even defended the interviewer, arguing that her questions had been fair. However, the majority of sports fans and analysts disagreed. They saw the exchange for what it was: a deliberate attempt to undermine Ronaldo's accomplishments, something he had experienced throughout his career. Yet instead of becoming defensive or hostile, he had handled it with intelligence, humor, and unwavering confidence. It was a masterclass in self-assurance, a lesson for young athletes and public figures on how to navigate tough questions and come out on top. This wasn't the first time Ronaldo had been at the center of a media storm, and it certainly wouldn't be the last. Over the years, he had been scrutinized more than almost any other footballer. From his move to Real Madrid for a then-record fee in 2009 to his unexpected return to Manchester United in 2021, from his departure from Juventus to his record-breaking contract in Saudi Arabia, Ronaldo had always been under the microscope. Every move, every goal, every celebration, everything was analyzed, critiqued, and debated. And yet, he thrived under that pressure. That interview, though seemingly just another media interaction, encapsulated Ronaldo's entire career. He had never been handed anything on a silver platter. He had to fight for every success, silence doubters at every turn, and prove, again and again, that he was not just another talented player, but a force of nature. The way he handled the interviewer was the same way he handled defenders, composed, precise, and ruthlessly efficient. Many sports psychologists later analyzed the way Ronaldo approached that interview. One leading expert wrote in an article for a major publication, Ronaldo's response wasn't just a defensive mechanism, it was a demonstration of his mindset. He thrives in the face of criticism, using it as fuel rather than allowing it to diminish his confidence. Most people, when questioned in such a manner, become defensive or irritated. Ronaldo, however, turned it into an opportunity to reassert his dominance. And that was the difference between Ronaldo and so many other great athletes. He didn't just let his performances speak for themselves, he spoke with authority, with conviction, with the confidence of a man who had conquered the footballing world time and time again. It was a mentality that young athletes aspired to emulate, a relentless pursuit of excellence that set him apart. Football academies around the world even began using the interview as an example in their mentorship programs. Coaches told young players, "This is how you carry yourself. This is how you face adversity. You don't let others define your success. You define it yourself." One of the reasons why the interview went so viral was because it highlighted a broader issue in football journalism: Ronaldo's complex relationship with the media. While he was one of the most marketable athletes in history, adored by millions, there was always a section of the press that sought to diminish his achievements. This wasn't unique to him. All great athletes faced their share of critics. Michael Jordan had doubters. LeBron James had critics. Serena Williams had skeptics. But with Ronaldo, there was an added layer. His confidence was often mistaken for arrogance. His celebrations were dissected for hidden meanings. His success was sometimes credited to luck rather than sheer hard work. Perhaps it was because he made it look too easy. When he scored a stunning bicycle kick against Juventus in the Champions League, people called it lucky. When he broke scoring records year after year, they said he had too many penalties. When he dominated defenders in his mid-30s, they claimed the leagues he played in weren't competitive enough. No matter what he achieved, there was always a narrative trying to minimize his greatness. But this interview, in just a few minutes, turned all of that on its head. By questioning the media's double standards in real time, Ronaldo had forced everyone to confront the way he was treated. Why was he held to a different standard? Why was he always expected to prove himself more than others? The silence that followed from the interviewer was the answer. There was no justification. One of the most striking aspects of Ronaldo's response was how he controlled the direction of the conversation. Instead of allowing the interviewer to dictate the narrative, he took control. He wasn't there to defend himself. He was there to challenge the premise of the question itself. This wasn't the first time he had done something like this. Throughout his career, Ronaldo had often been the subject of rumors and speculation, whether about transfers, his personal life, or his supposed rivalries with other players. But time and again, he had found ways to take back control of his own story. After leaving Manchester United the first time, there were constant whispers about whether he would return. Instead of engaging in endless speculation, he let his performances do the talking, winning 4 Champions League titles with Real Madrid. When people said he couldn't succeed in Italy, he led Juventus to league titles. When critics claimed he was finished, he moved to Saudi Arabia and became the face of football in a new region. He understood better than most athletes that controlling the narrative wasn't just about playing well. It was about knowing when to speak and how to say things in a way that left no room for doubt. The interview's virality was not limited to football fans alone. News outlets beyond the sports world covered it. Business analysts praised Ronaldo's media strategy. Marketing executives discussed how he had strengthened his brand with just a few sentences. And even public relations experts weighed in on how he had turned a potential attack into a moment of triumph. In Portugal, sports networks replayed the clip endlessly, with pundits calling it one of Ronaldo's most defining moments. Even in countries where football wasn't the primary sport, the interview made headlines. American news channels, usually focused on basketball and American football, ran segments on how Ronaldo had owned the conversation. Perhaps the most telling reaction came from his fellow athletes. Tennis star Novak Djokovic, who had faced his own share of controversies in the media, posted on Instagram, "Cristiano showing how it's done, always an inspiration." Even journalists, those who had often been critical of Ronaldo in the past, had to acknowledge his brilliance. One veteran sports writer admitted, "I've covered football for over 2 decades, and I've rarely seen an athlete handle the media with such poise. He completely controlled that interview." While the interview was just a brief moment in the grand timeline of Ronaldo's career, it was emblematic of everything that made him who he was. He was not just a footballer, he was an icon, a competitor, a man who refused to be diminished. Long after he retired, people would remember his goals, his records, his trophies, but they would also remember moments like this. Moments where he stood his ground, where he faced adversity with a smile, where he turned doubters into spectators of his greatness. For young players watching that interview, it was more than just entertainment. It was a lesson in confidence, in resilience, in self-belief. It was a reminder that no matter how much success you achieve, there will always be those who try to question it. But the way you respond, the way you carry yourself, the way you silence critics, not with anger but with poise, that is what separates the truly great from the rest. And in that moment, as he walked away from the interview with his signature smirk, Cristiano Ronaldo had reminded the world once again why he was and would always be one of football's greatest legends. As days turned into weeks, the viral interview continued to gain traction, expanding beyond the footballing world and into pop culture. It wasn't just a sports moment anymore. It had become a cultural phenomenon. Comedians, talk show hosts, and even politicians referenced Ronaldo's epic response, using his sharp-witted retorts as an example of confidence and media savviness. Late-night hosts in the US playfully reenacted the moment, with one comedian joking, "If I ever get caught in an argument, I'm just gonna ask, 'Do you ask Messi the same question?' and walk away like Ronaldo." Brands quickly jumped on the trend, using Ronaldo's words in marketing campaigns. A sports drink company released an ad showing Ronaldo scoring goals while a voiceover repeated his now iconic lines, "If scoring penalties is easy, why do so many players miss them?" The campaign was a hit, further cementing Ronaldo's ability to turn even the most challenging situations into branding gold. The moment also sparked discussion about the changing dynamics between athletes and the media. Historically, sports journalists had held the power in these interactions, controlling narratives and framing stories as they saw fit. But Ronaldo's interview was a clear indication that times were changing. Athletes, thanks to social media and direct fan engagement, now had more control over their public perception than ever before. One of the most remarkable aspects of the exchange was how Ronaldo handled pressure, not just on the pitch, but in the hot seat of a live interview. While many athletes might have responded defensively with frustration or passive aggression, Ronaldo remained calm, composed, and even playful. His ability to dismantle criticism without losing his cool was yet another testament to the elite mentality that had driven him to the top. This moment became a teaching tool in many fields beyond sports. Universities included it in media and communications courses, analyzing how public figures could handle scrutiny effectively. Business seminars used it as an example of staying composed under pressure, with executives discussing how the ability to think quickly and reframe narratives was crucial in leadership roles. Even self-help coaches cited Ronaldo's response as a model for confidence, advising their clients to answer criticism the way Ronaldo does by flipping the script. The journalist who had questioned Ronaldo eventually addressed the interview's unexpected virality. In a reflective piece published weeks later, she admitted that she hadn't anticipated such a strong response from Ronaldo. "I wasn't trying to provoke him," she wrote. "I was simply asking the kind of questions that often get thrown around in the football world. But what I learned that night is that Cristiano Ronaldo doesn't just answer questions, he turns them into moments." She acknowledged that Ronaldo had handled the situation masterfully, and rather than feeling embarrassed, she found herself impressed. "In the end, I became a spectator just like everyone else," she wrote. "Watching him take control of the conversation was like watching him take control of a game." For all of Ronaldo's achievements, his 5 Ballon d'Ors, his countless records, his iconic goals, this interview became yet another defining chapter in his legacy. It reinforced what the world already knew about him, that he was not just an athlete, but a larger-than-life figure who thrived under scrutiny. It wasn't just about football anymore. It was about self-belief, about standing firm in the face of criticism, about proving over and over again that he was built differently. Long after he retired, long after his final goal was scored, People would still look back at this moment as yet another example of why Cristiano Ronaldo was, and always would be, a legend. As the initial buzz around the interview began to settle, its long-term impact became more evident. This wasn't just another viral moment that would fade away. It had become a turning point in how athletes engaged with the media. Across different sports, players started taking more control over interviews, refusing to be boxed in by narrow narratives. Sports agencies and PR firms even began incorporating Ronaldo's handling of the situation into their training programs, teaching young athletes how to manage high-pressure interviews with confidence and composure. For Ronaldo, however, it was just another day in the life of a global superstar. He had been dealing with intense scrutiny since he was a teenager at Sporting CP, and nothing about the media's attempt to undermine him was new. What was different, however, was how the public responded. For years, debates had raged about Ronaldo's personality. Was he too arrogant? Too self-assured? But this time, the overwhelming reaction was admiration. Even those who had never been his biggest supporters admitted that his handling of the interview was nothing short of brilliant. Many sports psychologists weighed in on the incident, pointing out that Ronaldo's response was a textbook example of emotional intelligence. Instead of reacting with anger or frustration, something many athletes might have done in his position, he turned the question into an opportunity. His ability to remain composed under pressure was an extension of the same mentality that had driven him to greatness on the pitch. One psychologist explained in an article, Ronaldo's response was a perfect blend of humor, assertiveness, and strategic thinking. He didn't dismiss the question outright, but he questioned the premise, forcing the interviewer to justify her angle. By doing so, he reframed the conversation on his terms. This psychological mastery wasn't just something that had developed overnight. It was the result of years of experience, years of being in the public eye, years of sharpening his ability to block out negativity and focus on what truly mattered. In the weeks that followed, the conversation turned toward the changing landscape of sports journalism. The era of athletes passively accepting whatever was said about them was fading. Social media had given players direct access to fans, allowing them to share their own perspectives without needing to go through traditional media outlets. This shift had already been happening for years, but Ronaldo's interview brought it into sharper focus. It was no longer enough for journalists to rely on tired narratives or provocative questions. Players were now more prepared than ever to challenge those narratives in real time. Some journalists saw this as a threat, while others saw it as an evolution. A veteran sports writer commented, "The Ronaldo interview should be a wake-up call for journalists. If we want engaging, meaningful conversations with players, we need to ask better questions. The days of lazy, clickbait-driven interviews are coming to an end." As the dust settled, many of Ronaldo's peers in football began to share their thoughts. Some of his former teammates at Real Madrid, Manchester United, and Juventus praised him for standing his ground. "People have doubted him for years," said Marcelo, his longtime teammate from Madrid. "And every time, he proves them wrong. This was just another example of why he's different." Even players who had competed against him acknowledged his sharpness. One defender who had faced Ronaldo in multiple Champions League battles said, "I've tried marking him on the pitch, and let me tell you, it's just as hard as trying to catch him off guard in an interview. He's always thinking 2 steps ahead." Meanwhile, his former managers weighed in too. Sir Alex Ferguson, the legendary Manchester United coach who had nurtured Ronaldo's early career, was reportedly amused by the exchange. Though he didn't comment publicly, insiders revealed that he had watched the clip and simply smiled, as if to say, "That's my boy." Months after the interview, it was still being referenced in footballing discussions, sports podcasts, and leadership talks. The moment had transcended football, becoming an example of handling adversity, controlling one's own narrative, and standing up to unwarranted criticism with intelligence and humor. Cristiano Ronaldo had nothing left to prove, and yet he continued to set new standards, not just in football, but in professionalism, resilience, and mental strength. For aspiring athletes, business leaders, and even ordinary fans, this interview served as a reminder that greatness isn't just about skill. It's about mindset. It's about knowing when to speak up, when to challenge the status quo, and when to let actions speak louder than words. And for those still looking for ways to diminish his achievements, Ronaldo had given them an answer they wouldn't soon forget. Maybe I just make it look too easy. If you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, leave your comments below and tell us, what are your thoughts on Cristiano Ronaldo hilariously destroying the interviewer live? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching and see you next time.